Guys, everything okay? Imagine you being one of the greatest heroes in the world, but a supervillain takes everything you love, and you realize that heroic justice isn't always black and white, and being too nice has its consequences. So you become a prison officer, or rather, an executioner in the world's largest prison, where there are 5 levels and a rebellion is happening. However, in each level going down underground, the dangers are stronger. In the deepest underground level, there are only 3 people and they have a worldwide danger level: a grandpa, a woman, and a child. A child who took everything from you, and as the law demands, you will execute your sentence. The work begins with our protagonist standing over a man who is saying that he knew he was different from those useless gods. The protagonist shouts for him to shut up, but the boy tells him to kill him since he is the only one who can do it. Our protagonist says he won't be the one to kill him, since he promised his team he would put him in jail for justice to be served. Only our protagonist didn't know that until today he would regret, "I shouldn't have taken him to be judged by the law. I should have killed him." So let's go to the news with the reporter saying that Sung, the villain who made the whole world tremble in fear, has just been sentenced to death. They put a device to suppress Huang's powers, and he is currently imprisoned on the 5th basement of the prison for cruel villains, the Rookulus. We were also informed that some of our heroes who fought alongside Kong Yuseo were killed. The joint funeral for the fallen heroes of equality will be held tonight, but at this moment someone turns off the television, and we see that it's a man saying that he's still recovering, so he's lying down and not watching television. The man is introduced to us. He is the protagonist's brother, Gango Seo, and he is a prison guard at Rookulus prison. The sitting protagonist begins to confess to his brother that he shouldn't have arrested that guy and should have killed Huang himself. His brother says he made a promise to his comrades that heroes save people and that he won't kill anyone no matter what, and that villains are also people and have the right to be judged. And he also agrees with what she said. Only the law can condemn people, but it's the agents like him who need to carry out these sentences. Listen, brother, this is a secret, but Huang will be executed next week. You've already done your job as a hero, leave the rest to the prison guards. Now let's go say goodbye to your comrades. Then, 1 week later, on the day of Sungwon's execution, my brother was killed, and the criminal who should have been punished by the law survived, while my brother, a prison guard, was murdered. Sitting alone on the floor of the room, the protagonist hears someone calling for him, and it's a woman saying how long they haven't seen each other, and she's the director of Rookulus prison, Seun-jo, and asks if he has a minute to talk. In the meeting room, she shows a video to the protagonist saying that was it. What happened at Huang's execution? A squad of agents is accompanying Sun Huan until he talks to his brother. He said he looked like you and asked if he was your brother. I had said that your brother didn't have a superpower, so that's why he became an agent, and who would be older, him or you? Your brother kept going without saying anything, until he managed to get into his brother's head asking how he felt when he killed someone. Since he is a prison guard and an executioner, he bet his brother had already killed people just like him and he wanted to know the feeling. Sun Huan says he feels it's too easy, since he just needs a gentle touch and they burst like a soap bubble. His brother retorts saying that he fights against a horrible feeling of guilt even when he needs to execute scum like him, even though all he needs to do is press a button, and not a single day goes by that he doesn't have nightmares and more nightmares, and the prisoners he executes haunt him in his dreams. Sun Huan says anyway he still works here. Why? His brother says someone needs to do it, so he's just doing his job as an agent. Then he announces, before we continue with Sun Huan's execution, they want to know if you have your last words? And Sun Huan exclaimed, who's older between you and your brother? Then he begins the sentence. 3, 2, 1. The protagonist asks what happened. The director says at the moment of execution. The energy of Ruculus dropped and we don't know what happened. But it's shown to us. The agents ask if it's a blackout and the prisoner, where is he? We see the protagonist's brother saying he knew, due to an unidentified PEM, was it then? While Sunhwan says I already said only he can kill me. An explosion occurs, and agents call for reinforcements saying the prisoner broke the suppression device. I repeat, the prisoner broke the suppression device. But at that moment Sunhwan appears behind him, and with a touch makes the man swell, saying that was a burst, making the man explode. He starts walking towards the protagonist's brother saying, you know what I think? I think you're the older brother, am I right? The protagonist's brother tries to counterattack, but his arm is neutralized. He starts screaming in pain, and again Sunhwan asks, did I hit the mark? The protagonist's brother goes after him shouting that justice will be done, but Sunhwan simply explodes him. And in the midst of all that destruction Sunhwan says, I'd better ask your brother Gangyu if I hit the mark. The protagonist, not believing what he heard, the director says, these unidentified PEM attacks ended up freeing all the prisoners on each floor, without their suppression devices. The good news is we stopped them from escaping the prison, but many of our officials are trapped there with them. The protagonist, who knows who launched the attacks, she says they are still investigating. But Eroi Gangyu SEO, forgive me for asking this at the funeral of your brother. Could you suppress the rebellion in Ruculus prison? And without hesitation the protagonist says yes. But with one condition. My friends used to say heroes don't kill people, and my brother, who was a prison guard, used to say only the law can condemn people, and it's the person who carries out the sentence are just executors. So I don't want to go in there as a hero. Let me enter the prison as an executor. Nice to meet you, scum. I'm Gangyu SEO, your new prison guard. The villains already ask why there's a hero here wearing a guard uniform, but another without hesitation says, nice to meet you too, sucker. Now die. Then everyone goes after the protagonist. He just throws a punch, eliminating some and throwing others away. After seeing the damage he did with a punch, the prisoners wonder, what is this? Then Ganjio on his microphone says, listen here you pigs, under government orders, everyone from the ground floor to the 5th basement I will take over. My brother's duty, and whoever opposes will be executed immediately. Prisoners screaming, asking, what the hell are you talking about? Are you just going to kill us? The protagonist retorts, asking, after killing so many people, do you still find it unfair to die? They revolt, asking, who is he to decide who will kill us? A prisoner thinks while he's distracted with the other inmates, if I use everything I have, I can escape from this prison. But 1 second after passing by the protagonist, he's hit, and the protagonist says, I'll give you a choice. Quietly lock the control device and return to your cells, where you'll await your execution, or you can die by my hands right now. A prisoner says, what is this idiot saying? Since we'll die anyway, it's better to die rebelling. Are these terms of negotiation irrational in this situation? And the protagonist responds that this is not a negotiation, it's just mercy on my part. At this moment, the prisoner shouts, using a power. He says to pay attention, even if he's a hero of equality, there's no need for an agreement when there's only one strong man. I actually killed a second-class hero with a simple teamwork. So there's no need for all of you to be afraid. Let's kill him and regain our freedom. And the protagonist just stares at them, saying, you must be the trash boss that the officer told me about. We see her explaining that the prison, depending on the level, represents a different danger. On the 1st floor are those who killed many people. There are over 300 murderers there. In the basement of the 1st floor, there are 100 of those who endangered cities. In the basement of the 2nd floor, over 30 people endangered the metropolis. In the basement of the 3rd floor, there are 10 people who endangered the nation. In the basement of the 4th floor, 5 people endangered the continent. In the basement of the 5th floor, there are 3 people including Huang who endangered the world. It may seem like a lot, but still, the number of people to deal with will be much smaller. Why aren't the prisoners from the basement of the second floor and the basement of the fifth floor friendly with each other? But the first floor is the only one where all the prisoners are united around this person. Hillison, he has a special ability that strengthens his comrades through the sound he emits. Returning to the current moment, the protagonist says he attacked a hospital with 30 colleagues and killed 7 citizens along with the second-class heroine. But the prisoner corrects him, saying it was 10 people because that heroine was pregnant with twins. Upon hearing this, the protagonist asks the boss how much force he'll need to use. How strong is this prison? She tells him to do whatever he wants, that the prison won't collapse. She guarantees that. He says he understands and there's no need to control his strength. The prisoner says he's bluffing since he didn't do anything when he was a hero of equality, and bets he only captured Huang using his colleagues as bait. And using his power, he asks everyone to kill the protagonist. All the prisoners rush at the protagonist, but with just a swing of his arm, he eliminates a large part of the prisoners. And preparing a kick, he strikes the ground with all his might, where the noise can be heard throughout the prison. With the stomp, the protagonist throws everyone into the air, and going after them he says, "Activate Mode 1. Eliminate all the prisoners who were in the air at once." In less than 5 seconds, the protagonist defeated all the prisoners, and then he announces, "All the prisoners on the first floor have been executed." Going to the next floor, he finds 2 prisoners and asks them to choose. Put on the suppression device or die right here. One of the prisoners lunges at him, but just by walking, he eliminates the man. The other prisoner is scared and says he will put on the device. He asks to give it to him, please. But when the protagonist approaches to give the device, the man attacks him, saying he really thought he would obey him. However, nothing happens to the protagonist. He says that a villain they captured long ago said she felt sorry for those who don't have physical power, because they can only shoot targets from a distance and will never know how exhilarating it is to crush a person with their own hands. But the protagonist wonders, should this give a feeling of euphoria? Because for him, it's like he is breaking a mere egg with his fist. Then he finally reaches the solitary cell on the first floor, and we see a man sitting, saying, "All this commotion, so it was you, huh? How much time has passed? 3 years? It's been a long time, Hiro Seokangyu." And the man is the prisoner in solitary confinement on the first floor, Cheek Fielder, imprisoned for cannibalism and desecration of corpses. Cheek says he found another job despite not looking good. The protagonist simply says, "Choose, put on your device or die." Cheek says, "Why the rush? How about you, me, and your friends from Equality? Get together again to eat?" Then we have a flashback to when Cheek was captured. The protagonist notices what he had done, while listening to Cheek saying, "Doesn't it look tasty? They were killed and cooked just now, so it's going to be delicious." The protagonist, in rage, says he leaves no choices and that he will have to kill him. However, someone shouts his name, and looking back, he sees that it's the leader saying no. Cheek says that back then he seemed outraged when his colleagues decided to imprison him instead of killing him. And returning to the present moment, the protagonist says, "If you don't answer me, I will consider that you chose death." Cheek, sneering, says, "You want to know why I killed people?" However, in the blink of an eye, the protagonist finishes Cheek, saying he is not interested. But Kongyu hears a voice saying, "I did it," and turning around, he sees Cheek regenerating and saying he did it so they would remember him. When he kills someone, he becomes the most memorable person in their lives, because he can use his power to imprint his memory in their eyes, so they never forget him, not even in death. And we find out his superpower is hallucination. As proof, he remembers all of them. Should he show each one of them? But before showing the girl, the protagonist tears off his arm, and walking towards Cheek, the protagonist says he wants to shut his blabbering mouth. But his superpower is really annoying, that's why he is in solitary, but that doesn't matter to him. Cheek, scared, asks to ask a question before dying. He wants to know if Kongyu remembers the people he has killed so far. He says no, that scum like him is not worth remembering. Then, Summoning his former comrades, Cheek says, "But maybe you'll remember this." But without hesitation, the protagonist eliminates all of them and says, "Is this the end of your cheap tricks?" Cheek asks how he can cut down his comrades without hesitation, and Kongyu responds, "Because they are all illusions anyway," while slicing Cheek in half with a cut. And with Cheek defeated on the ground, he concludes, "Besides, I'm no longer the hero, but a prison guard." And with his last words, Cheek says he is not just a guard, he is nothing less than a monster. A monster not much different from Sunghwan. Switching to Sung, we see him saying, "Come on, not even a single act of resistance? When are you coming down, Seo Kongyu? Or maybe, should I go up?" The scene changes to other people, with a man saying, "Miss Sinka, when do you want us to start intervening?" And she says, "He finally showed up. This man is going to be my husband." They ask her husband? She says yes, he will be my husband. "But, miss, you said you wanted Sunghwan as your husband." "Well, wasn't that why we launched the PEM attack to save Sung? Moreover, this guy is a hero, he's a hindrance to humanity's progress." She says he was a hero, but now he doesn't seem like one. They say she should choose only one then, because polygamy is illegal. She wonders who to choose, since they don't get along. "Maybe the one who survives here will be the man I'll choose. I wonder, which of them will survive?" The director arrives saying the protagonist did a good job, that he cleared the first floor in an instant. And from now on the prisoners become exponentially more powerful, so she recommends he rest a bit. He says he can't, and that he'll go down right now, and asks her to open the door. She says she understands, and before going down, she would like to ask a favor. She's receiving signals that there are still guards alive sending signals on the lower floors. Please, help them so they can return to their families. He asks if she knows how many agents are alive on each floor. She says no, all the devices are broken, except one. On the 5th basement the devices are okay, but one thing I'm sure of. Someone wants us to see what's happening down there. He says he understood, and the director can release permission for the next floor. She asks not to forget that the power difference between the first and second floor is like heaven and earth. And upon opening the door, the protagonist receives a double attack, with the men saying the fastest wins, while everyone shoots at him. The security chief shouts for Kongyu, until she hears she should worry about herself. And grabbing her, the villain says he always wanted to wipe that arrogant look off her face, and wonders what he should do first, and announces to his colleagues that this is the prison director. But he gets scared when he turns around to see that everyone has already been defeated. He wonders what happened, and looking up he sees the protagonist ready to hit him, and in 5 seconds the protagonist eliminated almost the entire second floor. The security chief is scared in the presence of this power, and she hears the protagonist telling her that when they open the next floor she shouldn't go down, because it's not safe here. She simply agrees, but before Kong goes she asks to wait and says that Tomoki, the villain Tomo captured, is in isolation on the 1st basement, and leaving the protagonist says he already knew that. The scene changes to the solitary cell in the basement of the 1st floor with the criminals, saying if they heard that noise, maybe they managed to escape. Only the woman says of course not. Do they really think anyone among us can make such a loud noise? I've told them to stay put, but they just wouldn't listen. And we see that this woman is Tomoki, and she killed 28 heroes and is an ex-heroine. She says for starters you ended up as villains because you don't think with your heads. A man gets irritated saying if she's looking to die. She laughs saying if he really thinks he can kill her. She says they've never killed someone with superpowers or fought against one, because if they had, they wouldn't be here on the 1st floor. Losing all calm he says, someone with special ability will die right now. And with a super fast attack she cuts the man in half saying, you were right, really someone with special ability just died right now. She says she captured countless villains as a heroine and learned how to fight against people with superpowers. With this knowledge she also killed many heroes, and she will teach them that now. Of course, if you join forces with me, me. I will tell you how to hunt a person with special abilities. And more importantly, I will tell you how to defeat that guard. Because I know about Seo Kongyu's special ability. They ask how she knows that. I had a long career as an experienced heroine, so I have a good sense of most hero information. The prisoner asks what difference it makes. The hero was from equality, an elite hero different from a third class like you. She says that after Lausa became the leader of equality, there were reforms. First, she prohibited heroes from killing villains. Second, she regularly formed teams for joint training among heroes. Finally, the hero system from 1st to 5th class was abolished. And why am I telling you this? At the time Kongyu became a member of equality, it was when the system was abolished. He fell into equality exceptionally. They said he had powerful connections or even a relationship with Lausa. Yeah, you're right, I've certainly never seen Kongyu fight. But still, if you see how he cleared the first floor so quickly, he must be at least a second-class hero. None of that. The second class was full of trash. Even you guys could destroy them all. Isn't that right, guys? I'm not saying he's weak. I know he's definitely strong. But I know his weakness. That's why I'm saying we can hunt him down. He asks if she's sure of his weakness. She says yes. And even if she didn't, do you have any other alternative? We're going to die anyway. Decide quickly because he's approaching. They agree to join her and ask what her plan would be. Centuries ago, when superpowers emerged, researchers classified superpowers into 3 categories. The ability to transform and strengthen the body, physical type superpower. The ability to create something out of nothing, creation type superpower. And those not included in the previous 2 categories, special type superpower. Then Kong arrives in their sector. The man with his ability warns that he has arrived. And using the man's physical type ability, brainwave communication, she informs everyone that Kang's superpower is the same physical type as hers, and that she had discovered Kang's weakness when she saw him in the training arena. He has a fatal flaw, and they say everyone can attack him. She warns, thinking his flaw is that he doesn't dodge attacks, and that for Kong, it wasn't worth dodging. And that's why Tomoki had added something to long-range attacks. Suppression devices for superpowers. As she had said, they searched the corpses of the guards. They had a bunch. But are they made for first-floor criminals? Will they work for him? Tomoki says they just need to put a bunch on him. Should work for a second-class hero. But just to be safe, let's add even more to him. About 30 devices on him to do the job. The criminals say Kong is dead now and everyone can attack. But there were 3 flaws in Tomoki's strategy. The first flaw is Kang's immense strength. Far surpasses that of a first-class hero. The man warns that he destroyed all the devices. She asks to start the second plan immediately. They take some live guards as hostages and say if he wants to save the guards. However, they all died instantly. And we find out the second flaw in Tomoki's strategy is that, despite being physical type, Kong also had special type abilities. And the third and final flaw in Tomoki's plan was establishing a strategy for someone to whom this strategy does not apply. The criminals say they will put the devices, but Kong says it's too late now. The man watches this and becomes terrified and asks, "What happened? It's a total annihilation. Don't you have another plan?" While she wonders why the device didn't work if there were 30. The man keeps shouting, "Damn it, I shouldn't have believed in your words. I'm going to put the controller on if I want to survive a little longer." But she tells him to shut up, that she's trying to think while stabbing him. Who does he think he is to raise his voice like that? Don't think we're on the same level just because we're trapped together. Damn it, I had more than enough to seal the ability of a first-class hero, but all of that broke? If he's so strong, why didn't he fight with the villains on the front line? Damn it, none of this makes sense. Then she notices a guard trying to escape. He shouts for someone to save him. When she goes to finish off the guard, something cuts her hand. She looks back and hears, "Heroine Tomoki, or rather, prisoner Tomoki, do you have any last words?" "Oh, I do. Go to hell, because I screwed up." The protagonist asks if these are their last words, but she asks if it's true that all the heroes of equality, except you, are dead. He affirms that it is. So does that mean Tomo is dead? I told her not to become a hero. What a foolish little sister, she never wanted to listen to me. Anyway, I can't believe you killed people when you were still part of equality. Do the other heroes know about this? Do you know how much Lausa tried to change the hero industry? But you undid everything she worked for. Lausa wouldn't be sad to know about this? And, just observing, the protagonist says, you know, your last words were too long. Then we have a flashback saying that something is wrong with the hero industry. That was the first thing Tomoki felt when she became a hero, the fact that heroes hunt villains. We see a man using a woman as a hostage, and a hero splitting both the villain and the hostage in half. They had immunity even when citizens were killed in the process. The heroes were above the law. The reason Tomoki became a hero named Bliss was simple. Her younger sister, Tomo, had no superpowers and she relied heavily on her power-holding sister. But there was something. Somewhere in Tomoki's mind was distorted. As a hero, her job was to save people. Instead of feeling proud, she did it to feel a sense of superiority over others. Tomoki, who continued her hero activities, eventually killed a villain during a mission for the first time. In her first murder, for the first time in her life, she felt an overwhelming sense of superiority, one she had never felt before. Then she realized that killing people was so exhilarating. After that, Tomoki didn't stop killing villains, citizens, heroes. She murdered anyone who crossed her path indiscriminately. Among them, Tomoki's favorite murder was killing her weaker hero colleagues, just because of the expression of surprise, the feeling of betrayal, the shock. That's when she finally lost herself in delight. That expression got Tomoki high and Tomoki never got tired of it. But no crime goes unpunished. Her younger sister found it suspicious that Tomoki came home late at night smelling of blood. So her sister decided to follow her, and ended up witnessing the murder scene caused by her older sister. And when she thought her sister would stop it, she could see her. Her response was if her younger sister wanted to join her, because even if she didn't want to, she would do it alone. And it was at this moment that Tomo awakened her ability, and it was also the first activity as a hero that would later become. Since then, Tomo officially became a hero and continuously pursued her sister, who became a villain, until one day she managed to capture her. At this moment, Tomoki tells her sister that her power has become stronger, but since she is of the creation type and not the physical type, it's even sadder. Because those without physical abilities are truly pitiful, because they can only shoot targets from a distance, they will never understand how exciting it is to crush people directly. You'll never understand, little sister. With Tomo saying, I never had a sister like you. Returning to the current time, Tomoki asks if Tomo died without suffering. The protagonist says that when she fell in battle against Sunghwan, she was asking for her sister to save her. She died looking for you. And upon hearing this, Tomoki says she shouldn't have asked, because that just made me feel worse. She goes for the protagonist, hitting him in the chest. However, when she notices, the protagonist is actually already behind her, and when she turns to try to attack, the protagonist already grabs her and kicks her away. He starts walking slowly towards her. However, emerging from the smoke, Tomoki attacks him again, but he retaliates faster, hitting her in the stomach, making her vomit blackcurrant juice. With the power of the blow, she loses her transformation, and Kangayo says she's a prisoner in death row, but still, it saddens him, knowing he must kill a fellow's family. So Tomoki asks if he can spare her. Since he's a hero, hasn't he promised to Lausa? He responds saying he's not a hero, but still, she begs him to spare her. So Kong says that this situation now is something she has seen several times, hasn't she? Tell me what you did to the people who begged back then. And realizing there's no way out, Tomoki just says shit. As the protagonist prepares to strike, the blow was so strong that it echoed a tremor throughout the prison. It was to the point that the group outside heard it. They wonder what that sound was just now. The Miss gets excited saying it must be Kong, and she doesn't know what to do. She's totally in love now. The size of the impact was so great that it instilled fear in others down there. However, for some, it only increased expectations even more. Sung, excited, says he won't give up. He's coming up right now. However, he gets hit, being thrown away, and he's impressed, saying, "Wow, what a surprise, it was a great blow." And we hear someone saying, "Are you bored, boy? Want grandpa to play with you?" And we see his name is Kingston. Sung says, "Wow, a scary grandpa." And laughing, Kingston says, "Scary? I'm just a kind and friendly grandpa who likes to play with kids." And we see that this grandpa is Kingston and is on floor 5 and is prisoner number 0001. Worldwide danger level. So the guards who are listening get startled, shouting for the director. She asks what's going on, and they request her to look at the 5th basement right away, because Kingston and Sunghwan just met. She, giving a smile, says that's good news, because it means one of them will surely die. Personally, I hope Kingston wins, since he's not as dangerous as Sunghwan. But why is he keeping that woman in the air? Sung asks Grandpa if he'll play with him, and he says yes. But Sung says he doesn't want to play now. However, Kingston, exuding an aura, says he will anyway. We're given details about Kingston. He's the first criminal to be imprisoned in this place. But unlike most prisoners on levels 4 and 5 underground, who were imprisoned for killing millions of people, Kingston only killed 3 people. His first victim was the most powerful and heinous villain of his time, Caracas. The other 2 victims were the most powerful hero duo of the time, Clark and Hilo. Kingston suddenly appeared out of nowhere and killed the 3 most powerful people in the world. And when surrounded by police, he exclaimed, "I've killed everyone considered invincible. Does that make me the strongest person in the world? How disappointing." After saying these words, he let the government take him. He was a great threat to the world, but surrendered only after killing 3 people and voluntarily turning himself in. He was also helped by the fact that the government and the Hero Association weren't getting along at the time. These 3 factors allowed him to postpone his execution for 30 years. Kingston says he won't kill Sung, so how about we play a little, since he doesn't stomp on young before they can grow. Sung says it's okay, and raising dozens of dead officer bodies, he turns them all into flesh balls. And, looking seriously at Kingston, he says, "I think I can play a bit." He fires all the projectiles towards Kingston, but the old man calmly waits for the right moment to move, and, with very fast and precise hand movements, he starts batting everything away. But then we realize he didn't just bat everything away. He destroyed everything, only the projectile itself hadn't realized it had been destroyed yet. Both are silent for a moment after this, and Grandpa says he thought Sung used telekinesis, but the way he attacks and defends tells him that's not it, and asks if he has any other attacks. Sung just quips that he's changed his mind. Playing with him isn't fun. After all, what's the point of killing someone who's already going to die of old age anyway? Kingston, after hearing this, says he's an arrogant kid and that he's seen many like him who think they're the biggest fish in the pond. And, giving a stomp on the ground, he destroys everything around him while saying, by acting like this, they allow their ego to get the best of them. With Kingston's stomp, everything starts shaking as the guards panic, shouting that the building is collapsing. The defense chief tells them to stop being dramatic. This prison can't be destroyed even by the power of first and second class heroes. It's 20 layers of special walls. How can it be destroyed? So calm down. And, going back to Kingston, we see him saying, "Kid, let me teach you some manners." Then Kingston disappears, and Sung there didn't notice what happened, and, after 2 seconds, he gets a fright. Seeing that Kingston is already ready to hit him, he thinks there won't be time to dodge. An impact is heard throughout the prison again, that even the protagonist on the first floor can feel. The director asks if everyone is okay and who won the fight. The guard says that's not the problem, and upon looking at the fight again, we see Kingston didn't aim at Sung. The guard says the attack destroyed all the walls. Kingston is escaping. Upon hearing this, the director just says, "We're screwed." Sung is impressed by this and says the old man is a living drilling platform. How many walls did he break? This could be interesting, maybe I should follow him. Then he hears, "Why follow that old man? It'll be more fun to stay here and chat with me." With anger in his eyes, Sung asks, "Who are you?" The miss says he can know more about her if they talk. The director shouts, "Who the hell is that girl? How did she get to the 5th basement?" However, the miss, before progressing the conversation, says, "The happy spectators can leave now." The director, angrily, hits the table and wonders what the hell is going on here. Going to the protagonist, he arrives at the door to the 2nd floor. He tells the director he cleared the entire 1st floor and asks to open the gate to the 2nd floor. However, he realizes for some reason the communicator isn't working, so he decides to open the gate to the 2nd floor himself. He explains to us that in the underground floors, while going down the stairs to the 2nd floor, unlike the ground floor and the 1st basement, which smelled of blood everywhere, there was no stench in the 2nd basement. In fact, there was no one, and not a single corpse in sight. It's too clean. Suddenly, he notices something. He sees a woman running, shouting for them not to approach her. Looking ahead, suddenly she screams, "Seo Kangho?" The protagonist is startled by her calling his brother's name, and as she's about to be hit by the monsters, the protagonist destroys them with an attack. He asks if she's okay. She runs to hug him, screaming for her brother's name. She says she thought he was on the 5th floor, and what was that just now? You already had superpowers? Why didn't you tell me? Then he pushes her away and says, "I'm not Kangho, I'm his brother." She, astonished, says, "Hiro Seo Kongyu?" She asks what he's doing here and why he's wearing an agent uniform. However, he doesn't answer and says she must be my brother's colleague, and says it's not safe here, you need to. However, she interrupts and says, "Me sorry for this, brother-in-law." He responds, "What?" She says, "It's the first time we're meeting, I should have introduced myself. Hello, I'm going to be your sister-in-law. Your brother and I are getting married. You two really look alike." With the protagonist surprised by the news, only saying, "What?" In the isolation cell on the 2nd basement floor, we see someone saying, "It seems there's someone from the outside among us." And another person saying, "Yeah, Meal, you're right. I wonder, how many sins did the stranger commit in his life?" The girl named Mael says she's sad because the stranger killed her dogs, while the boy named Meal says, "Seriously? Then it's simple, let's send the stranger to hell." Returning to Kong, the woman says she's only seen him in photos and videos, and that he looks much more handsome in person, and it's a pleasure to meet him. She's called Hong Jia, a prison guard. The protagonist says that his brother said he had a girlfriend, but he didn't tell him anything about getting married yet. She says, "Well, about that, the thing is, look, your niece or nephew is growing up nicely here." Upon hearing this, he is surprised that he didn't know his brother was going to be a father. She explains that there's no noticeable bump yet, and they only found out a few days ago. But his brother said he would tell him about it after Sung's execution is over. He asks if that's true. She confirms it and asks if there's a problem. Turning his head, he says no. She asks what brings him here, and he explains the whole situation and that he's there to execute all the prisoners in that place. She doesn't understand why the director ordered him to do that, so he explains about the PEM attack, but he's shocked to learn about the attack. He asks who could have done this. She responds that she still doesn't know. Then, crying, she starts asking about her brother, and she says he's in the basement of the 5th floor. And when he's about to tell the truth, he thinks it wouldn't be good for her to know now because of the baby. So he gives her information, saying that someone is sending rescue signals from there, and she's relieved to hear that. Then, ready, she asks her to go up because it's dangerous here, but she says she'll go along, and he wants to know why. She says she has the ability of a special type to read a person's memory by looking at them, psychometry. She's at a loss to know that she might have read his, but she tells him to relax. She only does it when there's a good reason, but he wants to know how it will help him. She says the 2nd block is under the control of Meal and Mael, prisoners from the isolation cell. Both brothers prisoners have special powers of type and creation. They have the ability to summon creatures, and when their creatures pierce someone's heart, they can turn them into their puppets. Currently, all the prisoners in the basement of the second floor are their puppets. Kong says he already knows all this because they are disciples of the mage. He says he doesn't need information about them, so he asks her to leave. But she argues that some of the puppets are agents, and with her ability, she can distinguish the police from the prisoners. But Kong says if they've already been turned into puppets, they're already dead, so what's the point? She says no, they're alive. If the brothers release them, they return to normal. Kong replies that it's impossible for the brothers to want to do that, but she asks him to let her try, that she can convince them. He says it's not safe for the baby, and as a final move, she says, before being a future mother, she is a prison guard. She must fulfill her duty as a guard. And seeing her brother's image in her who values the law above all, he says he understands, and activates his power over her. She asks what is this? He says his power will protect her from any dangerous situation. And going to the second floor, the protagonist thinks this situation is so strange. Upon arriving there, they see a bunch of puppets, and the guard says that this is Meal's power, the older brother. The protagonist asks which of them are officers, and when activating his power, Jia sees that they are the two puppets in the back. She tells him to submit all of them first and then separate them. However, the protagonist begins to close her barrier. She says she can't see anything, and Kong just says, sorry, but there's an easier way. And going after all of them, he says, the officers will be spared, and the prisoners will be killed. This is the easiest way to separate the two groups. With just one punch and activating mode 1, he defeats everyone there. Then we notice that the protagonist is being watched, and we see that it's the brothers from the second floor. The little girl asks her brother what he thinks. Do you think this stranger is stronger than our master? He says it's possible. Then, she asks, is he stronger than that woman? And leaning on her brother, she says she's scared. However, he tells her not to worry, because anyway, it won't be easy for him to kill us. After that, the protagonist frees Jia. She asks why he arrested her. He apologizes for scaring her and says he should have told her in advance. She asks what happened. He says he isolated the prison guards and executed all the prisoners. She says, you executed them? But the execution devices are in the basement of the 5th floor. How did you do that? I executed them personally. She, startled, says, did you just say you executed them yourself? The protagonist confirms and asks if there's a problem. She, indignant, asks whose idea it was. With a hateful look, he responds that it was his. Jia asks if the director agreed to this. The protagonist confirms. In shock, Jia thinks, what was that bitch thinking? She wants to know if it's okay for Kongyu to do this. He replies that he did what a prison guard needs to do, or does she have a problem with that too? She shouts that our job isn't about killing prisoners, it's about rehabilitating them. Prison guards should, but he cuts her off, saying, no thanks, I don't need sermons about ideas. They say heroes are supposed to save people and not kill them, and that people should only be sentenced by the law. But I know very well what happens when someone pursues nothing but ideas. They are slaughtered by beasts that cannot be reasoned with. Honestly, I don't care if I'm supposed to be a hero or a prison guard. I'm done with this a long time ago. Someone needs to put an end to these irrational beasts. She, frightened, says, Kongyu, they are humans. And retorting, he responds, are you serious? What the hell are you talking about? What makes you think they are humans? Every criminal from the second basement floor and below is kept here for killing thousands of people. They all deserve to die. In the past, there were debates about abolishing the death penalty due to the possibility of wrongly executing a criminal. But no one has ever been wrongly convicted since people with psychometric powers appeared. I'm sure you know that better than anyone, Jia. She, trying to convince him, says that they all have a story, especially Meal and Mael. And already speaking angrily, the protagonist says, Jia, everyone in the world has a story to tell, including the victims. They also have a story to tell. And besides, what difference does it make? They would still end up dead. If not by my hands, it would be by an execution. She says that one person alone should not have the power to decide who will be executed. And already getting tired of this discussion, the protagonist says, enough of this. That's enough. If you keep saying things like that, I'll send you up there, and then you can sort things out as you wish. So, after a while walking, they encounter a group of puppets. The protagonist asks who the guards are here. She replies that it's the three behind. And preparing his attack, he says he understands. And while the protagonist closes his sight so she can't see what's going to happen, she says, your brother will be very upset when he finds out what happened here. Hearing this, the protagonist enters into rage, and since he's not moving, the monsters attack him, making a direct cut on his neck. However, this attack didn't even scratch him, and with Jia's words coming back into his mind about his brother, he loses control of his anger and crushes the monster in front of him. And as he destroys all the monsters in front of him, he thinks about all the talk about idealism. That enraged and frustrated him. Words and words, and more words. It's always easier said than done. But, in any case, as he activates his mode 5, he managed to vent some of those frustrations, killing the prisoners. And switching to the group watching the protagonist, the girl says, he keeps getting even more wonderful every time I see him. After a while walking, they encounter 3 more puppets and Jia says the 3 are guards. Saying he understands, the protagonist asks for permission now, but he hears something, a door opening and someone saying, welcome, stranger. And cutting the conversation short, the protagonist says, did you come to meet me? All right, that saved me some trouble. It's a pleasure to meet you too. Jia shouts for Meal and Mael. Meal asks Jia why she didn't come to them. If she had done that, surely she would have gone to heaven. The protagonist interrupts their conversation, saying to free the people from their control. If they do that, he promises to kill them quickly. Meal wants to know if there's any option where he won't kill them. Kong explains, prisoners on the first floor and on the first basement had the option to put their suppression devices back on, but all from the second basement floor and below, who killed thousands of people, have only death as an option. Meal and Mael say, strange lord, we heard that you worked with our master and the woman who captured us, but you are very different from your colleagues. I'm sure you're going to hell. And already activating his power, the protagonist says, well, let's see who gets finished first. Meal says that if he promises to let them go, they will free the people. And with anger in his eyes, Kong says, request denied. Jia shouts for Meal and Mael not to worsen things, and to put their suppression devices back on. Meal says they didn't do anything to deserve a death punishment and that guard Jia knows it, and that's why we must refuse your offer. And when Jia tries to say something, the protagonist interrupts her, saying that she can't persuade them. Words are useless for beasts like them, but there are other ways, so don't worry. Even beasts can understand pain. They say they don't want to fight the protagonist, and once he listens to their story, he'll be open to negotiation. And again, he says, request denied. Jia says we can find a peaceful way to resolve this situation. And closing Jia's portal, he says, please, shut up. So, impatiently, he captures the 2 brothers, and lifting them up, he says, you know, a villain once taught me something, how to torture people, but who would have thought it would be useful to me one day? The brothers, unable to move or use their power, Meal argues, you can't rationalize. You're the very beast you're talking about. But Mael corrects, not a beast. He's a true monster. Then we see that the brothers were just puppets of prisoners who looked like them. The protagonist says, so they also have special type superpowers besides summoning. While finishing the prisoners, he says, this is a great inconvenience. Why does all this heinous scum keep calling me a monster? How annoying. That's all. Mael, watching, becomes frightened by the protagonist's coldness and strength. Meal asks if she needs help. She says no, and that Meal should focus on breaking the wall. While she tries to delay him, a magic circle appears in front of Kong, from which several giant monsters emerge. Kong says, so this time they used summoning power, and destroying the monster with a punch. He finishes saying, these things are not human, so I can kill them all, even their owners. Mael, seeing this, becomes terrified, and shouts to Meal, how long is this going to take? He says he needs 10 minutes. She says, since it's like this, I just need to buy more time. And when she's about to use special summoning, they hear a noise that shakes everything, and realize it's the ceiling being destroyed. And in the midst of the smoke, Meal asks, what happened? Is it him doing this? And after the smoke clears, they realize the protagonist is already there. But how? Then Kong says, you know, I thought a little better. I realized that once I capture you, everything else will stop. So why do I have to fight with all those things? This is your last chance. Free the prisoners and guards, and in return, I'll kill you quickly and painlessly. Meal, frightened, asks how many skills he has. The protagonist, impatiently, repeats, free them soon. From his damn skill, Meal raises his arms while thinking about how many walls he broke in a matter of seconds. And, joining his hands, he performs his strongest invocation. And looking up, the protagonist sees a group of celestial angelic summons, Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel. But, at the same time they are summoned, they are destroyed with a kick from the protagonist. The brothers can't believe this is possible. Meal is completely terrified and uses his magic, manipulating the bodies of the guards while they scream, stay away from us. You monster, if you don't leave us alone, all the prison guards will die. However, the protagonist responds, if you don't stop this skill and release the guards, your little sister will die. I'll make your sister have a very painful death. She starts screaming in pain, telling Meal that it hurts to help her. The protagonist, ignoring the girl's screams, asks, so, what are you going to do? And, kneeling on the ground, says, all right, I'll release them and stop your skill. But, in return, please let me talk to guard Jia. The protagonist says it's okay, but to release them first. If not, I won't stop hurting her until you release them. After a while, they start deactivating their skills. Both the guards and the prisoners are bewildered. A prisoner approaches, asking, what was that? Why are we here? But, without saying anything, the protagonist cuts them in half. The brothers are scared by his coldness and strength. The guards tremble, not knowing what happened, and say, you're Kong Yu, the hero, right? What's going on? However, he doesn't explain and just says, all of you return to the top. And, without questioning, they say, yes, sir, and leave. Meal says he released everyone, so he should fulfill his promise. Kong says it's okay, he'll let them meet Jia. But first, let's go somewhere else. After all, the sight of this place won't be good for a pregnant woman like her. After a while, he releases Jia. She asks what happened, and he says the job is done. The skills were interrupted and all the guards have been rescued. And what about Meal and Mael? They are right here. They want to talk to you before the execution. Jia says, Kong, you could still just put suppression devices on these children, but he says, Jia, please, don't make me repeat. Everyone from the second basement floor and below killed thousands of people, so I will personally kill them. Meal asks Jia if she really thinks they deserve to die. We didn't do anything to deserve this penalty, please, say something. Jia doesn't respond because of Kong, but he says she can speak, but be brief. While she speaks, Meal and Mael, what you did was really so? But the protagonist explains to her that Jia tried, but she couldn't say anything. The protagonist says, so you have nothing more to say. All right then, let's continue. I kept my promise. Now, you will be executed. Mael screams, please don't kill us. She doesn't want to die, while desperately screaming for her brother. However, the protagonist, disregarding her pleas, launches the attack. And, looking ahead, he says, what? Who is this man? The equality mage. Meal shouts, Master, while Kong, not understanding anything, just thinks, what is happening here? Thank Thank you very much to everyone who watched until here. If you want part 2, leave it in the comments or suggest the name of some work you'd like me to bring. If possible, subscribe to the channel. It will help me a lot to motivate myself and bring videos faster. The like is also always welcome. So, bye bye, until next time.